Java's Application Programmer's Interface, called the API, is one of the best things about Java. In this chapter, we're going to start to learn how to use classes and objects in the API to make our programs better. You've probably heard that Java is an object-oriented language. Objects in Java represent things in the world. In general, objects are nouns. A good example class is the string class. A string object is a sequence of characters. We can create a string by saying, string my dog equals new string, and then in double quotes, Abby. We can create another string by saying, string my sister's dog equals new string, and in double quotes, Xena. Each string object has its own sequence of characters, given in the constructor above by the characters between the quotes. The rules about how these objects will behave are given by the string class. The job of the class is to determine what data has to be stored to create the object and how the objects will behave. For example, the string class is used for storing text that will not be modified. If you want to store a sequence of characters that can be modified, you need to use a different class, called the string builder. The variables my dog and my sister's dog are string references. A reference is the location of an object in the computer's memory. So my dog and my sister's dog contain different references because they refer to different objects. We draw pictures of these objects using memory diagrams. The references get an empty box. The objects get their own box with the name of the class for the object at the top. Inside the class box is another box that represents the data. In the case of the string class, this will be the contents of the string objects. We draw an arrow between the reference box and the box that contains the object to show that a particular reference refers to a given object. Having a way to picture objects makes it easier to understand exactly what a program is doing and to debug it. The string objects are created using a constructor. The syntax contains the word new and the class name. If you don't construct an object for a reference, the reference is called null. A reference without an object is useless and tends to cause a problem called a null pointer exception. Anytime you get one of these, it will be because you forgot to call a constructor on an object somewhere. The string class has some very special syntax. We're allowed to construct strings without using the word new. This is the only class in Java that has this privilege. So for example, we can say string my other dog equals Raven in double quotes. This is also a constructor call. In fact, we were constructing strings without thinking about it when we were doing things like system out print line, this price is plus price. The string this price is called an anonymous string because it doesn't have a named reference. The plus operator represents concatenation, which means that the anonymous string object that contains the price is combined with the character representation of the variable price and placed into another anonymous string that's then printed out on the console. I think it's fascinating that synthetic languages like Java do the same thing that human languages do. In human languages, the most commonly used verbs tend to be irregular, and the less commonly used ones tend to follow a more predictable pattern. Think about the English verb to be. I am, you are, she is. That's irregular. The same is true in French and in many other languages. In Java, string is one of the most commonly used classes, and it's irregular by virtue of having a special constructor and being allowed to use plus to mean concatenation. Now that we have objects, we need to be able to do things with them. Methods in Java are actions and are how we get information about objects and modify them. So if objects are nouns, methods are verbs. Each class in Java describes how objects of that class can be used. This is documented for the standard classes in the Java API. The method charat, for example, has the following documentation. To get to this method, you'll open the Java API on your computer, find the string class in the frame on the lower left, search for the string class, Control F on a PC or Command F on a Mac, and scroll down until you find a table that summarizes the methods. If you click on the charat method, you'll find this information. It may look a little different if you're using a different browser or use a different size window or font, but the information should be the same. The API contains lots of information about methods. In fact, it really contains too much for beginning programmers. So you need to get used to skipping over the parts that don't make sense just yet. For example, we have no idea what a char sequence might be, although it's okay to guess. and this time you'd probably be right, or even what throws means. So we just ignore that part. The critical information that we learn is that char@ needs an argument that will be used to tell us which character in the string is desired. This is shown in the API by the parameter int index. We also learned something odd about Java. In Java, we usually start counting at 0, not at 1. This is called zero indexing. We also learned that the method is going to return a single character. This shows up in the API by the word char before the method name. So if we're to create a string my dog equals Abby in double quotes, system out print line, my dog.charat of 0, prints the character capital A on a line by itself on the console. You have to tell the computer which object charat applies to. This is done with period notation. I usually pronounce this as dot. The method charat, when called on the object my dog, returns a single character. You can see that in the documentation by the word char before the method name. As you get more experienced with Java, you'll get better and better at using objects from the Java API. We'll learn how to use lots of interesting classes in this section, including math, array list, collections, and JOptionPane.